door, at the entrance. Friends, just before we begin, if I could respectfully request anyone whose mobile phones are not yet silenced to please do so at this point. Thank you. It is customary at a funeral service to begin the service with the recitation of selected psalms, the chapters of King David. We recite them in Hebrew and then translate them into English. And those who have access to the laminated booklets in the front of the back of each pew, please do follow in. We begin with chapter 1. Ashrei ha'ish asher lehalach bi'atzat rishoyim v'derech hatoyim lo yamad v'moshav leitzim lo yashav ki im b'torat Adonai chefto v'torato yegeh yomam v'layla v'haya ka'etz shatul al palgei asher prio yitem b'yito v'yolei lo yibo v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach lo chen harishayim ki im kamotz asher tidfenu ruach Al ken lo yokum rishayim b'mishpat v'chata'im b'adat tzadikim ki yodei Adonai derech tzadikim v'derech rishayim toved. Here King David distinguishes between the path of the righteous and its alternative. Happy is the one who is not followed in the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of those that mock. Rather that one's delight is in the Torah of God, meditating in his Torah day and night, and will be like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, whose leaf will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Not so the wicked who are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked shall not survive judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For God loves the ways of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed. Chapter 15. Mizmor LeDavid Adonai miyorgu b'yaholech amiyishkon bahar kodshecha holech tamim ufoil tzedek v'dover emet bilvavo l'ragal al l'shono lo asa l're'ehu ra v'cherpelon al sa krovo nivze beinav nimas v'yet yirei Adonai yechabed nishpal hara v'lo yamir kaspelon natan b'neshech v'shochad al naki lo lakach oisei ele lo yimot liolam. Here King David identifies some of the traits that characterize a person as a mensch, a principled human. Song of David, Lord, who may sojourn in your tent, who may dwell in your holy mountain, one who walks in purity, does what is right, and speaks the truth from the heart, who has no slander on the tongue, nor has done harm toward a fellow, nor cast disgrace toward a neighbor, in whose eyes a contemptible person is off-putting, but who honors those who are in awe of God, who swears truthfully even to personal hurt, and never retracts on one's word, who does not lend money unjustly on interest, nor take a bribe against the innocent. One who does these things shall never falter. Finally, chapter 23. Mizmor LeDavid Adonai ro'elei echsar Binot deshe yarbineteni al mei menuchot yinahaleni nafshi yoshev yancheini v'maglei tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech begeitz al mavet lo yirara ki hatay madi shiv techa mishantecha hema yenachamuni taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai dishanti v'Hashem en roshi koisi ravaya ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti b'veit Adonai liorech yamim. Even at the depths of despair and in our darkest moments, we are always cognizant of a higher power. The Song of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures. He leads me beside tranquil waters. He restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for his name's sake. And though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God for the length of days. This morning, we gather together as family, friends, and community to say our final farewell to Norman KOTZMAN, who left this world peacefully and who has returned his soul to its maker. In a moment, I'm going to invite Lindsay and 3 of the grandchildren to share some words on behalf of Natalie, the children and the grandchildren. But before doing so, if I might note a brief reflection. First and foremost, it must be noted the incredibly long-standing relationship that Norman and Natalie and their family have had at the St Kilda Shul. They were married there some 60 years ago and have shared many simchas and weddings and the next generation of simchas at the shul as well. This is something that we as a congregation deeply value. But beyond that, in the short amount of time that I was able, at least in the last few years since I've joined this beautiful community, to get to know Norman when he would come to shul, traditionally on the high holidays and some other occasions, or to see him at various family gatherings or events. The one thing that struck me most about the man that we are honouring today was his absolute authenticity, the genuineness of his nature and of his character. He did a lot of good together with Natalie for our community. And Maimonides points out that there are different things that motivate different people to do good things. And the highest level of motivation, he notes, is ose et ha'emet mipnei shehu emet, to do that which is right simply because it is the right thing to do. This, in my mind, was the type of person that Norman was. Unpretentious, unassuming, genuine, honest, a what you see is what you get type of person. Those are the types of people in this world who garner respect and admiration from everyone who knows them. This is the way that I will always remember Norman, and the way I know so many of you here today will as well. But there is no one better placed than the members of Norman's family to share personal experiences, to talk about their upbringing, Norman's history, and the wonderful contribution that they've made to Israel and to local organizations to assist those who are underprivileged and those who are vulnerable. So I'd like at this point to invite Lindsay to come up, and thereafter some of the grandchildren.
Thank you all for coming. Our father Norman always fondly recalled the time when he was 6 years old and was taken by his father to meet the chief rabbi of Israel. The rabbi lay his hand on his head and recited the blessing of the children. From that day on, he always felt blessed. He was a firstborn child of Sarah and Marcus. His dear sisters, Gita and Etta, were to follow. Sarah's family were early pioneers in Israel. They arrived in the 1920s from Poland, strongly believing in the principles of Zionism. Their first home was a tent on the beach in Tel Aviv. Marcus arrived in Israel from Vienna before World War II as an illegal immigrant, having been involved in anti-fascist politics in Austria. Dad was born on the 17th of September 1935 in Ramat Gan, Israel. His first blessing was that he was born far from the ravages of what was to be war-torn Europe. So I never thought I'd feel like this, but anyway. Nevertheless, life in Israel was difficult and they lived in poor circumstances. Marcus had been a diamond setter, but as you can imagine, there was little work in this field and he spent most of his time as a labourer on minimal wages. He recalled to Ali his granddaughter, in her Roots project, when asked, "How did your childhood compare to today?" His response was that life was much simpler. There was no electricity in our house. We used to read and do our homework by night by kerosene lamps. There was no gas. My mother cooked on a kerosene stove, and we had no radio until I was 14. Generally, it was quite primitive compared to today, but we were happy. As life in Israel was tough, Dad tried to help out financially where he could. At around the age of 12, he invested in 10 chickens, which he bred. These grew in number to about 50 chickens, and he was able to sell the eggs they produced to neighbours. Interestingly, the chickens were kept safely at night in a cellar which later doubled as a family bomb shelter during the War of Independence in 1948. He also grew and sold flowers to make extra money. He was blessed to see the birth of the State of Israel firsthand. It was just on this past Shabbat that Dad told us one of his happiest memories in Israel. It was a gift of tefillin to celebrate his bar mitzvah from his grandfather Jacob, whom he adored. The family migrated to Melbourne when Dad was aged 16. The flight on a propeller wing aircraft took about 4 days. Dad applied to Melbourne High School. He smiled as he recalled that he had limited knowledge of English at the enrolment interview. However, he deftly solved a quadratic equation. The principal seemed impressed and he was accepted. He told us how he studied Shakespeare in Year 11 and the difficulties he had when the Hebrew-English dictionary didn't have the translation, but nor did the English dictionary. He passed high school and was accepted to study medicine, but the family finances wouldn't allow 6 years of study, and so he settled for a Bachelor of Science degree at Melbourne University. The family first lived in Kew, and in the early days he taught children at Sunday school. He had the quietest kids in the whole school, but for good reason, because he promised them that if they were quiet, he would buy them all ice cream after the class, a promise which he honoured every week. When the time arrived for him to do national service, his mother, a real Yiddish mama, said, "I don't want you playing with guns. Get a job in the kitchen." This proved to be a boon. He made friends, and in fact he met his future brother-in-law Darryl there. He was popular because his cooking was good and he could distribute good-sized portions. Upon his return, he was involved in charitable work, taking the orphans from Francis Barkman House on excursions for ice creams. In fact, later in life, he was, for many years, the Vice President of the Melbourne Jewish Orphanage Society, now JCAS, Jewish Children's Aid Society, of which Melody remains a board member and his brother-in-law Trevor is president. He sourced the first posh op shop and helped Rosalie Silverstein establish it. Dad's early jobs were as a teacher and as a scientist. Etta remembers him coming home one day from his work at Monsanto and saying the world was going to change because he had seen a new invention called plastic. In the 50s, this was almost completely unheard of. He met Mum in his mid-20s. She recalls that he was a good-looking, imposing 6'3" man, university educated and a good catch. Dad was always in a rush. He decided he wanted Mum and quickly proposed. Mum was always undecided and took 2 months to make up her mind, but finally she said yes. This led to their marriage in 1959, and they recently celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary at a small family gathering. The marriage led to the union of the Cohen and the KOTZMAN families, which consisted of Myra and Godfrey and Sarah and Marcus, Darryl and Hannah, Heather and Trevor, Geeta and Noel, and Etta and Ron. Mum and Dad's wedding night was memorable because their reception finished late, and when they turned up to their newly modern booked motel for their wedding night, the doors were locked, and so they had to search around town for a place to sleep, eventually ending up at the George in Fitzroy Street. A bit of a stressful night, and certainly not the one they dreamt of. Anyway. Mum and Dad were quick off the mark and prolific in their baby production. Over the space of 3.5 years, first Michelle, then I, and then Melody were born. Dad had enterprise imprinted on his DNA. He always wanted to be his own boss. And when Darryl one day told Dad of a small laundry business that a client was selling in Richmond, Dad jumped at the opportunity. He took a small hole-in-the-wall business over the space of 10 years to the second largest commercial laundry at the time in Melbourne. He worked incredibly long hours, often leaving the house at 4 a.m. and returning home late at night. He mainly serviced shipping lines, restaurants, motels and hotels. The temperature inside the laundry was always 20 degrees above what it was outside. On cold days it was comfortable, but on hot days it was a blast furnace. He ran a great team of about 50 mainly Greek workers who held him in very high regard. So much so that 20 years after he sold the laundry, and with little communication over the years, one of his old employees invited him to his daughter's wedding, and Dad and Mum were seated at the head table, which showed the level of respect that his employers had for him. The business was sold when Dad was in his early 40s, and then Dad turned his hand to his other love, which was property. He traded in a number of properties, but his most notable was a building of the Brighton Bay Twin Cinema. He was convinced that Brighton lacked a quality art house cinema and wanted to have one round the corner from where he lived. Why not? Once it was built, Dad ran it, and we and our friends were employed behind the counter and as ushers. They were fun times. We also saw Mum and Dad head off to Cannes and other places on a number of occasions to buy new films for distribution in Australia. There is now a plaque opposite the Brighton Bay as a tribute to him and Mum for establishing one of the first art house cinemas in Melbourne. Soon after, the three of us married and had children, with Michelle and Paul having Wesley, Julian, Lyndon and Alicia, Melody and Stephen having Max and Ashley, and Georgia, and Deb and I having Connor and Lexi. Both Paul and Stephen recall having not too welcoming initial impressions from Dad, who was tall and imposing with quite a loud, booming Israeli voice and a thick Israeli accent. However, when he realised their intentions were true, they were welcomed to the family. I'm sure many of you will remember the extraordinarily funny speeches he made at Michelle and Melody's weddings. In later years, Mum and Dad travelled more extensively and enjoyed retirement. Dad was a wonderful son to his mother when he retired, visiting her every day for lunch for years and years to keep her company and to give her something to do. Mind you, she was a really good cook. We enjoyed a number of large family holidays, and every second Shabbos we all usually sit down for a big family meal. This was one of Dad's greatest pleasures. He was a great cook and contributed to those meals. He's been a chess fan for so long as I can remember, and right up until a few days ago enjoyed playing chess online with anybody anywhere in the world. To sum up Dad, I will consider him an intelligent, thoughtful, humble, selfless, generous to a fault, and always willing to help and step up when called upon. He never worried about what people thought and simply got on with life. I'm truly honoured to have been called his son. We love him deeply, and he will be sorely missed. However, we also take solace in the fact that he has led a blessed life, and we were blessed to have him in our lives. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Yesterday, Papa's 9 grandchildren sat down together to reminisce about Papa and all the wonderful ways he shaped our lives. To me, Papa spoke with his eyes and his smile. He was a man full of character, and when you connected with him, you could feel it flowing through your veins. That shared understanding, that cheeky grin and smile. You didn't need to say much with Papa. You looked into his eyes, and that's where the connection really was. I remember living at their place. I'd walk downstairs in the morning and ask, "Papa, how are things?" To which he'd answer, "My things are good. How are your things?" He also liked life to be simple and unencumbered. I think he said to all of us grandkids individually when he got his hearing aid, as a statement of fact, it's like having a pea stuck in your ear. Would you like a pea in your ear? Safe to say, he infamously and intentionally left his hearing aid in Surfers Paradise so he wouldn't have to keep a pea in his ear in Melbourne. And even though he was an innovator and always full of ideas, I think he really just loved a bit of peace and quiet. We once watched the waves crash at night for 2 hours from his balcony in Surfers Paradise. We barely said a word, but we didn't need to, because a sense of life and time spent together was all you really needed with Papa.
Papa Norman was a sweet, caring and thoughtful man who placed his love of family as a top priority in life, along with his love of chess and wider hobbies. I love playing chess together with Papa for 25 years. He has always been an inspiration in how he fostered forward thinking and creativity. When I was younger, he would always beat me in chess. Then, after a while of being whomped, I learnt that he had 2 major openings which I studied in depth. Then I started to really practice and work hard and eventually beat him semi-consistently, which was one of my prouder moments in life. Now, this was not on for Papa, who promptly organised himself chess lessons, and together our game improved and evolved as our win ratio balanced out. Papa always worked hard, and his determination has inspired us grandchildren to achieve to the utmost of our potential. Lexi and Ali fondly remember the look of pride in his eyes when he showed them his science degree in applied chemistry. Papa taught us that by working hard, we can overcome challenges and experience a sense of pride as we relive the path of our grandparents to achieve educationally and beyond in the real world. All of us remember the times when Papa would enthusiastically ask how our studies are going and to spell the first words which came to his mind, which was often rhinoceros or platypus. Every Friday, Papa encouraged us grandchildren to play tennis and to share the same love of his favourite sport with him. I remember every Friday after school, we would be sitting at his place in the TV room, waiting for our name to be called out as our turn to go up for a tennis lesson. When we successfully completed our lessons, Papa would be there, proud as anything, and award us with an ice cream. Here in the other speeches, ice cream is, a recurring theme through the speeches. I will miss you, Papa, you sweet, caring man.
One defining quality of Papa was his love of food and sharing this passion with his family. Papa was always offering his grandchildren his favourite snacks, including mungos, cherries, and of course, magnums. When Michelle and Paul used to go on holidays, Lyndon and Ali would stay at their grandparents', and after one particular time, Lyndon came back and would ask his mum for some lamingtons or bananas, having adopted Papa's thick Israeli accent. Papa loved going to restaurants with his family, and his keynote question that I'm sure we are all familiar with when ordering any type of meat was, "Is it tender?" as if the waiter would tell him it was tough. Opening the door to the KOTZMAN household on a Friday night brought a wide aroma of freshly cooked food, ranging from his special chops, his oven-baked mashed potatoes, and his delicious chicken and vegetable soup. He gladly took on the role as the chef of the family. Even on Saturday, when the family went to visit Papa in hospital and gathered around his bed, Papa was looking a bit uncomfortable, so I asked, "Papa, would you like some oxygen?" And without his hearing aids in, his face quickly lit up. With a twinkle in his eye, he asked, "Ice cream?" We all had a giggle and quickly passed him a magnum. Even in his final days, he found enjoyment in his love for food. Papa, I will miss sharing more meals and making memories with you, but will cherish the ones I have.
The common thread in all these stories that have just been shared is Papa's absolute and unconditional love for his family. For as long as we can remember, Nana and Papa together
have been the head of the KOTZMAN, Curtis and Wise families. Their 60 years of marriage is an incredible example of their commitment to each other and to the family they have built together. When Papa was asked, what is the most important thing in life, without hesitation, he answered, family. His love manifested itself in his cooking and games with grandkids and his obsessive interest in our education. Over the years, Nana and Papa took us on some amazing family holidays to Lindeman Island, Thailand, USA and Mexico. No matter where we were in the world though, the most important part was that we were there together. Shabbat dinners were the local example. It's no secret Papa's hearing was less than perfect, and at our loud Friday night dinners, no doubt much of the conversation was missed. But as he sat back in his chair and smiled, you could tell he didn't want to be anywhere else. This same loud concoction of laughter and storytelling could be heard from his hospital room last Saturday, and Papa had the exact same content smile as he always had as he looked around the room. Papa, we'll miss you. Thank you for instilling in us such wonderful values, and we promise to continue to grow this family that you and Nana have so wonderfully built.
Thank you to each of you for the words so beautifully articulated and which no doubt have penetrated into the hearts of everyone sitting here today. It is always difficult to say goodbye to someone who has been a rock in one's life for so long. If there was one message that I could perhaps share with his beautiful family at this difficult time, it is to say that central to Jewish belief is that we are made up not only of body but also of soul. The body is transient. It is here today, it is gone tomorrow, and this is a fate that awaits every single one of us, a fate which no human being has ever escaped since the dawn of civilization. But then there is a soul, the neshama. This soul is eternal because it is otherworldly. It comes from a higher place. It comes from God. It is instilled within us, and it is manifest throughout our lives through the decisions we make, the care and the love that we give to others. Norman is no longer with us physically, but spiritually, at a soul level, he lives on. He lives on because his legacy and the values that he has bequeathed to each and every one of you has become etched in your hearts, in your minds, and it will be perpetuated eternally through your good actions and the choices you make in your lives. May Norman's memory be for a blessing, and may each and every one of you be blessed with long, happy, and healthy lives. I'd like to ask those who are able to please rise for the memorial prayer, which is recited in Hebrew. El malei rachamim shoichein b'maromim hamtzei menucha nechoina al kanfei ashchina b'malot kadoshim otohorim kazoya harakia mazhirim et nishmat Reb Nachman Moshe ben Mordechai Tzvi Alevi shehalach liolamo Bavur shanachnu mitpalalim bi'aras karat nishmato began eden tehei menuchato lachein balarachamim yastirel b'seite kanafav liolamim v'yitzro b'tzro achaim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar amen. If I could ask you to please remain standing, to note that there is a Shiva Minyan this evening at 7 p.m. at the St. Kilda Shul. We ask you to please consider arriving early, as parking is often restricted in those streets. I'd like to ask the family to please exit through the front doors, and everyone else to please exit through the rear doors, and to approach the coffin as soon as it comes out. Thank you.